You sit in a room that is dimly lit, the air still except for the faint hum of a distant refrigerator. Your hands rest on your lap, and there's a quiet ache behind your eyes, as if every thought has been waiting its turn to speak but never quite found a voice. Outside, life moves with its usual rhythm, footsteps on pavement, laughter drifting from a neighbor's window, the subtle rustle of leaves. And yet inside, there is a careful, measured silence, one that has settled over you so completely that speaking feels almost foreign. You may remember moments from your past, small, unremarkable moments that carry disproportionate weight. The sound of raised voices in a hallway, a disappointed glance, a sudden tension that made you hold your breath. And so, you learned. You learned the rhythm of quiet, the ways your body could shrink, fold in, and become nearly invisible. You discovered how to occupy space without drawing attention, how to move without shaking the delicate balance around you. This was not a choice so much as an instinct, honed by necessity. You recall evenings when you wanted to speak, to assert yourself, to make a sound that belonged entirely to you, yet something held you back. Not fear exactly, but awareness, a subtle understanding that noise could have consequences, that being heard might not be safe. You adapted. You developed a quiet that felt like armor, a stillness that became your shield. It was survival, though you would not have called it that then. And now, in your adult life, that quiet lingers. Not always protective, not always functional, but habitual. You notice it when rooms feel crowded, when conversations demand energy you do not have, when your presence is expected but your voice hesitates. The silence carries an echo of its origins, and the body remembers. The tension that once made you hyper-aware, the careful calibration of your tone, the patience of waiting until it was safe to act or speak. This quiet can feel lonely. You may observe others moving freely, speaking without restraint, expressing irritation or joy with ease. And you too have thoughts, desires, and feelings that deserve attention, yet the habit of restraint has become so ingrained that expressing them feels almost impossible. You may feel fatigue, not from exertion but from the constant monitoring, the subtle self-regulation that your body learned long ago. It is the energy of vigilance, stored and recalled unconsciously. There is a paradox here. The quiet that once protected you now shapes your experience in ways both subtle and pervasive. It allows you to observe, to notice details others might miss, to navigate tension with grace. And yet, it can also leave you depleted, because energy that might have flowed outward freely instead circulates inward, looping through memories of necessity, adaptation, and restraint. In relationships, you may notice this pattern most vividly. Perhaps you hesitate to assert your needs, concerned that doing so might disturb the balance, disrupt someone else's comfort. Perhaps you step into conversations cautiously, offering measured responses instead of unfiltered expression. The same instincts that once ensured safety now guide interactions with subtle care, but they carry an emotional cost: fatigue, tension, and sometimes the quiet ache of invisibility. Reflection brings clarity. You begin to see that this pattern is not a flaw or a failure. It is a learned response, a survival skill that shaped who you are and continues to influence how you engage with the world. Awareness allows you to separate past necessity from present choice. You can recognize the silent strategies your mind and body developed, and you can choose when and how to employ them, rather than being unconsciously guided by them. There is a deep tenderness in acknowledging this. You may allow yourself to feel the weight of what was required, the subtle grief of experiences that demanded more than your young self could fully comprehend. And in that acknowledgement, there is the first glimmer of ease. You understand that the quiet was not a failing, it was a shield. And shields, once worn for protection, can eventually be set aside, at least for moments of intentional rest and expression. You may notice physical manifestations of this history: tight shoulders, a clenched jaw, shallow breathing. Your body remembers even when your mind does not consciously reflect. You notice tension creeping in when interactions are prolonged, when the expectations of others are subtle but persistent, when your own energy dips from the habitual self-monitoring that has long been second nature. These signals are not signs of weakness, but reminders, reminders that your inner world is responding to patterns learned long ago. In moments of reflection, you may also see how this quiet has shaped your insights, your empathy, your sensitivity. You have learned to read rooms, to perceive emotions before they are expressed, to adjust subtly to maintain balance. These abilities are gifts, though they carry the cost of energy. Recognizing them as skills rather than burdens can shift perception from frustration to understanding. There is a subtle art in reclaiming presence without abandoning the self-protection that quiet once offered. You might practice brief interruptions of habit, allowing yourself to speak without overthinking, to linger in a thought or emotion without immediate adjustment, to inhabit space fully without shrinking. Each conscious choice to engage differently is not rebellion, but integration, honoring both the survival strategies of your past and the needs of your present. You may notice that solitude becomes a sanctuary. It is not avoidance but recalibration, an opportunity to return energy to yourself, to breathe without interference, to reconnect with thoughts and feelings that were once deferred. In solitude, the quiet that was learned as protection can be reframed as reflection, as awareness, as a space to replenish rather than merely survive. Gradually, you recognize patterns in interactions that once drained you. You see that your silence was often a response to environmental cues, rather than a reflection of desire. You understand the difference between choosing to remain quiet and remaining quiet out of habit or conditioning. This awareness allows for a gentler engagement with yourself, a permission to act, to speak, and to exist without automatic inhibition. There is also an awakening to boundaries. You learn to notice where your energy is required and where it can be preserved. You may begin to recognize when it is safe to speak and when it is wise to wait, not out of fear, but out of choice. Each moment of discernment strengthens your autonomy, providing balance between external responsiveness and internal nourishment. Insight deepens further when you reflect on the emotional texture of silence. There may be longing, a soft ache for freedom of expression, for unmeasured joy or unguarded sorrow. There may be gratitude for the subtle strengths cultivated by early restraint. Both emotions coexist, and both are valid. Awareness allows you to hold this duality gently, without judgment, recognizing that survival skills are neither wholly burdensome nor wholly liberating. You may notice how these patterns influence creative expression, work, and personal relationships. Ideas may emerge quietly, insights arrive slowly, and emotional resonance may be heightened. You realize that your sensitivity and attunement are linked to the quiet that was learned for survival, giving depth to experience, perspective to judgment, and subtlety to interaction. At the same time, the energy required to maintain constant vigilance becomes apparent. You notice fatigue more clearly, a lingering tension in the back of the neck or the chest, a soft exhaustion that arises not from activity but from adaptation. You learn to honor this fatigue, not as failure, but as communication from your body and mind, reminding you to pause, reflect, and restore. Grounded awareness allows you to engage with your environment intentionally. You may find joy in measured expression, in laughter that is not subdued, in conversation that flows without constant adjustment. The quiet learned for protection need not dictate interaction. It can inform wisdom, guide discernment, and coexist with authentic presence. You may observe that relationships shift as awareness deepens. You speak when you desire, remain silent when it serves you, and begin to trust the rhythm of your own voice. Others may notice the calm, steady confidence that comes from intentionality rather than automatic adaptation. This is not mastery over silence, but integration of it, a recognition that your voice has value and your quiet has purpose. There is a soft relief in this recognition. You are not burdened by the need to abandon what kept you safe. You are not failing by existing quietly. You are reclaiming the freedom to inhabit your own patterns consciously, to alternate between silence and expression, vigilance and rest, observation and participation. Each moment of awareness is an act of permission, granting the self-agency that may have been deferred for years. And finally, there is an enduring sense of safety. You understand that the quiet was protective and that protection has a place in your life, but it is no longer the only way to exist. You feel grounded, centered, and present, capable of navigating the world without unconscious depletion. Insight brings calm, reflection brings clarity, and your body responds with subtle ease. In this space, the quiet transforms. It is no longer a mere survival mechanism. It becomes a lens through which you observe, a rhythm that guides interaction, a companion that supports intentional engagement. You can choose when to fold in and when to extend outward. You can breathe, move, and speak with awareness, and know that your energy is yours to steward. You leave this moment with a soft steadiness, a quiet understanding that your past shaped resilience, attentiveness, and empathy. You carry these gifts with awareness, choosing when to engage and when to restore. You are safe, capable, and grounded, fully present in both your silence and your expression. And in this awareness, you may notice a gentle empowerment, the knowledge that being quiet once protected you and now it can guide you, not confine you. You may navigate life with intention, respond to your own needs, and honor the rhythms of your mind and body. Insight, not exhaustion, becomes the measure of engagement.